It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Weekend. Time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Friday. Glad you made it. I'm here in the studios of KJB Radio in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where right now the snow's coming down pretty good and has been for a while. I get here, as you know, I get to work around like 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was just starting a little bit to snow, just a little bit of powder on the ground. But since then, it just picked up a lot. If you're over in Laramie, too, and we're between Cheyenne and Laramie, around that region, you're getting a lot, and down into Colorado's getting a whole lot of snow. Most of the rest of the state, now if you get up, once again, Jackson Hole and up into Yellowstone, they're hoarding all the snow. They're still just getting pummeled up there. For the rest of the state, the extended forecast is at 6:45, and at 7:45, Don Day is going to join me for the whole weekend forecast live. So, okay, it is open phones. 888-97-WOODS the number. That's 888-97-WOODS. We'll get this out of the way first thing. Yeah, I am glad I slept through the State of the Union address. However, because of my job, I show up here in the morning. First thing I got to do is not watch the whole thing. I went and caught the highlights of it. So, yes, Biden got his nappy poo, and then they jacked him full of Red Bull and put him out there. So, okay, he gave his State of the Union with hecklers, including Marjorie Taylor Greene was a heckler, and she did not get arrested for it. He just shouted back at her, and she's not supposed to do that anyway. But also a heckler from up in the gallery, and this was a gentleman who had lost someone, a daughter, I think it was, in Afghanistan during that mess of a pullout, is my understanding of it, that beginning of the Biden administration. He was arrested and pulled out of there. The congresswoman would not be, but the guy up in the gallery was. So, okay. Some of the highlights, just fact-checking. So the president claims to have slashed the deficit by $1 trillion. Mm-hmm. And I'm being careful here to blame the Republicans, too, especially because of that reason, to keep the government from closing down today. It was supposed to have a partial government shutdown today because, once again, your Congress ran out of money. To keep it going, we ended up with a pork-filled spending package that, if you remember, Harriet Hageman called the show yesterday, and we talked about that, and she was even bothered, upset by a lot of her Republican colleagues who demanded all sorts of pork spending, along with the Democrats, just to keep the budget going. So this is massive deficit spending by both parties. And no, Biden did not cut the deficit by nearly $1 trillion. We're close to about $35 trillion in debt at this point. And that's the lowballed number. It's well over $100 trillion when you actually include everything. So that was the first one that I saw. Let me say, claims he eliminated the trade deficit. Not even close to being true. In fact, our trade deficit has gotten worse, especially because a lot of companies went back overseas after Biden started dumping regulations on companies that had come back during the Trump years to do business in America, to manufacture in America. Now they're back overseas again. But one of the stories I have in front of me here is he claimed Biden said that the U.S. is exploring products instead of importing products instead of importing foreign. Well, he got it backwards, implying the trade deficit had been erased, if not even just reduced greatly. Quote, and now instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating jobs right here in America where they belong, he said. Okay, again, not even close to being true. The United States ran a goods and services trade deficit of about $779.8 billion just last year. Now, the record high was a couple of years before at $951.2 billion, but that's not erasing anything. Trade deficit is, well, the goods have been higher a little bit during the Biden presidency in the past couple of years as some of the economy has made a bounce back. But no, nothing was erased. We're still, vastly in a deficit that we shouldn't be anywhere close to right now. We are exporting far more than, importing far more than we're exporting under the Biden administration. And we're almost up to the 8 billion mark at this point, just yearly. Okay. Biden called for a business tax hike to reduce the budget deficit, which got me because I'm looking at this thinking, well, again, it's a Democrat we're talking about here. But I've seen Republicans do it too, but mostly the Democrats. Instead of trying to government, let's figure out how to raise taxes. And once again, he did the whole ploy of tax the rich because the rich aren't paying their fair share. Now, if you know actually who does pay the majority of taxes, you find out it's the big corporations that do so. And most of the burden is on them. But okay, the story says President Joe Biden proposed raising taxes on the nation's job creators to help shrink the government's ballooning budget deficit. Now, we also know whenever the government either raises taxes to get more money, closes tax loopholes to get more money, which is also raising taxes, or the government borrows or prints more money, does that reduce our deficit at all? No, that just puts us more in debt. And spending continues to go up. That never settles the problem. The constant call from government of we need more money. Just give us more money and we won't have this debt. Well, we give them more money, we end up with more debt because they spend it. Okay, so while claiming to have cut the federal budget deficit by $1 trillion, despite vastly increasing spending under his administration, Biden said corporations and wealthy should pay more. My goal is to cut the federal deficit by $3 trillion by making corporations pay their fair share, finally. Okay. The answer to this, if you want to cut by about $3 trillion, is instead stop spending so much money. Joe Biden claims he created a record 15 million jobs. Okay, first off, presidents are not supposed to be in charge of the economy. That's one of the big problems we've run into over I don't know how many decades now, is that we think that we elect a president to run the economy. The president's not supposed to run the economy. Congress is not supposed to run the economy. The economy is supposed to run itself. Government just is supposed to make sure that it's played fair, that it's a fair game. Anyone who's either defrauding, ripping people off, polluting the environment, no, CO2 is not a pollutant, but polluting the environment, things like that. That's what government takes care of. But government's not supposed to run the economy. Now, a president and Congress can certainly wreck the economy with too many rules and regulations and, bad trade policies, things like that. But a government doesn't create jobs. The private sector does. Now, a good percentage of the jobs that have been created, remember, your government shut down the economy because of COVID. COVID did not shut down the economy. Your government shut down the economy. Now, after finally those restrictions were lifted, people got back to work. That's not Biden creating jobs. But he continues to claim that I created all these jobs. People got back to work after the whole COVID thing. Although we're still in a lot of trouble there. Let's see. False. Oh, yeah, Biden claimed that Republicans will cut Social Security. Again, that's just... Now, here's the big one. I want to catch up on this one next because this, to me, was one of the big ones. Biden goes after junk fees. We got, and he talked about shrinkflation, but of course we have to go after the junk fees because companies are ripping off the American people. I got an answer for that you're probably not going to expect, but we'll do that next. 6:15 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Make your voice heard at 888-97-WOODS. This is AM 1030, K2 Radio.
Coming up on 623, Morning John. Heidi John is in Granite Canyon. Bob is in Glen Rock. Leanne over there in Fort Danger. And then we see Chet in Yoder, Jim up in Casper. Morning, everybody. So, all right, I'm going through the State of the Union address. Just one last thing about it. Unless you guys want to call in and comment yourself at any time. It's open phones today. But, all right. Here's something that might have been off of the radar screen of a lot of different people. The president touched on junk fees, and he accused companies of piling on with all sorts of junk user fees, which if you're out there in the public trying to do business, you know about junk fees. Banks do it, of course, but all sorts of other companies try to attach all sorts of fees, shrinkflation, stuff like that. And I thought, well, hang on a second, Mr. President. If you really think that this is a problem for the American people get buried in junk fees, and it costs the American people a lot of money. Here's a thought. The biggest junk fee problem that the American people have comes from government. How often, and one of my favorite old expressions is basically what government does is it takes something that's a natural right, and it takes it away from you and then sells it back to you. That's what a lot of permitting stuff is. You should be able to do something without any interference whatsoever, but government comes along and takes that right away from you, but will sell it back to you for a fee. And it usually comes with a whole lot of paperwork, too. And the number of times I know everybody out there can, especially if you're a business owner, you know this. You go ahead, try to do something for your business, and you find yourself sitting down, filling out a bunch of paperwork, which is redundant nonsense that doesn't help anybody. Then you've got to pay the bureaucrats for having filled out all of that paperwork, and then they give you permission to do it as whatever it is your business needs to do. Now, what good did all of that paperwork do, and what good did the fee do to get that permit? Nothing. Not a thing. If the president really wants to get away from junk fees, and I'm all in favor of that. Okay, Mr. President, save the American people a lot of money by getting rid of the burden of government. Let's just cut back on useless bureaucracy. And I thought about this. It's a saying I'm really proud of. I thought about this many years ago. Basically, everything is illegal, dangerous, immoral, emphasis on the dangerous and immoral. Government makes it illegal. But everything that is dangerous and immoral, until government has you fill out paperwork and then you give government money. Because as soon as you fill out the paperwork and give government money, magically all of a sudden it's okay to do it. Whereas before, if they had just left it alone, whatever it may be, would have been just fine anyway. So why all of the junk fees? Why all of the paperwork? Why do I have to pay a fee to fill out a bunch of paperwork where the rules and regulations didn't matter anyway, didn't really do any good, didn't save us from any problems? So I can talk to the individual about this. In fact, I didn't really think about this. I've never had to build a house. I know Jim, he's with Cunningham Electric up there in Casper. He can tell you this because he's an electrician. Someone wants to go build a house. And between your city government, if you're in the city limits, your county government, and work on up the list here, how many permits do you have to pull? And how expensive are those permits? Now, I'm not saying no rules. A lot of people, when I say stuff like this, people think, well, you got to have some rules. No, some rules are good to make sure we have good quality work and people aren't getting ripped off. So it's a good idea to have some rules. But still, what does that add to the cost of a house? All of the junk fees and paperwork and permits you have to pull from government just to get something done. Ask somebody in the energy industry, especially with the Biden administration, that wants to go drilling or digging for energy or create energy in any kind of way. How many permitting processes do they have to go through? Or just someone who wants to start a basic business somewhere or expand their business. And it's not even just the permitting process, it's the tax structure that we have. The president talked about tax structure during the course of his speech last night. Let's talk taxes for a minute. It's how complicated? I was at a Thankful Thursday in Cheyenne last night, And there's a guy who was with USA Tax Services who I just was listening in on the conversation. He listens to the show, but I was listening in on the conversation as he talked about how complicated the tax code has gotten. Under Trump, for the individual, he did make some things easier, but for businesses especially, it got even worse. The tax code is very difficult to understand. And there are many people who do it for a living. I mean, think about it. There's people who, for a living, try to help us navigate the tax code. There was a businessman talking to the tax guy who said, I would love to be able to sit down and just do my taxes myself, but I can't. I have to hire professionals. And even then, the professionals struggle to understand what's going on. So if the president really wants to get, as he says, I mean, his words in this, he went after junk fees. His words, junk fees. Okay, Mr. President, I would love for you to get rid of junk fees. Let's do this. We'll start with government, and we'll work from there. Shed and Yoder. So hunting and fishing licenses are junk fees? I agree. I think they are. You can add those in as well, among a whole list of other things. So, all right. Coming up on some local news we got to take care of right after local news update on the weather forecast. Then you and I get back into it again. Oh, I-80 John. Let's start with each member of Congress gets one secretary and one aide in D.C. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's wake up, Wyoming.
Weekend.
He's talking to himself in a padded room, and you could be the voice in his head. Join the conversation on Wake Up Wyoming, 866-97-WOODS.
.36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name's Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. Okay, you can get in on this conversation. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Talk about what I'm talking about or change the subject is fine with me because we're doing the open phone sing today. I always do it every single day of the week. I do some kind of open phones, but on Friday, it's the entire program. So, all right. I was going to go on to another topic. You guys are dragging me back in, and that's okay. Junk fees. During the State of the Union last night, the president brings up junk fees. And he's not wrong. You've had to deal with it, from banking fees to who else do you do business with that they keep throwing out all sorts of fees out there and trying to upcharge you on all sorts of different things. So he hates bureaucracy and junk fees. Because a lot of times this does come with bureaucracy from the private sector. And so that's what he complained about. He's not wrong. Hey, Mr. President, while you're at it, let's start with junk fees from government. We can certainly get rid of a whole bunch of those, can't we? Boy, that would really help the American people. In fact, give business a big boost if we got rid of government junk fees. But no, we keep adding them more. We keep adding more as we can continue to grow the bureaucracy. So let's see, Jim in Casper. Hang on a second, Jim, get your whole permits, state, county, city, license fees, county, state, every city or county in the state. You need a license, income taxes, phone, natural gas, electricity, fuel parts, workers' compensation. Yeah, so in other words, Jim is an electrician in Casper, Wyoming. He owns Cunningham Electric. And so in order for him to work on, not just in the county he's in, Natrona County, but to go around the state or the region, everywhere he goes, he's got to get licensed in so many different things. And then all sorts of permits on every little project. Doug is in Cheyenne. Junk fees, I need 4 licenses just to do my job. Had to renew them every year for a nice little fee, of course. Yeah. So here again, if the president wants to talk junk fees, I'm all about it, and I think we should do everything we can to get rid of as many junk fees as possible, and let's start with government on every single level, from your local government on up. Some rules and regulations are always fine. We do need a few rules to make sure that people are doing things safely and nobody's getting ripped off, and I'm okay with that. But this has gotten so out of control. It's not just difficult for business people to function. I mean, from small businesses to major corporations. But it's difficult for individuals and costs the American people how much money every single year. And think about if that money, instead of going to useless fees and bureaucracy, could be pumped back into the economy, back into people's savings, back into retirement programs, back into their health care. What else could you do with that money instead of just paying it on useless junk fees to your government? So, way to go, Mr. President, but you're not looking in the right place. Now, a growing, I'm going to give you something good. Let's get away from the annoying stuff for a minute. Media is pushing on the idea of mass immigration, not to America, but from America. Once again, there's the possibility of Donald Trump becoming president. Again, those on the far left, especially in Hollywood, are saying that if Trump is elected president, they're leaving the country. Yes, it started again. I got another story about this in front of me. Growing number of Americans getting ready to immigrate as former President Donald Trump zigzags back into the White House. Quote, if Trump is elected, Americans are planning to flee in droves, according to Business Insider. Now, I don't really believe that because they keep making these promises to us, which we would help them. I mean, in the past, I have said, look, if somebody is elected president that you don't like and you folks want to leave the country, we will, with volunteers, show up with moving vans and make sure the door doesn't hit you on the way out. But you never really go, do you? From a woman in Montana who's planning to move to Tuscany. Quote, yes, it's true. I bought a Hilltop Village home for a song compared to U.S. prices. Don't want to be in the U.S. anymore. It's expensive. And sick of all the political crap and shootings. From a woman in Texas, an insurrection by a narcissist who couldn't accept election loss combined with his gun and abortion policies made moving a necessity more than just a dream, she says. So, okay. For years, one more, an author and veteran journalist is saying that for years, Americans have chosen the wrong president, basically. And he says, officially, I'm off to Canada. Well, okay, again, folks, good. And we'll help you. Not a problem. But every single time we get someone like this up to run and he gets into, you don't go. Please quit promising us something that we would love to see happen and not delivering on. It's just driving us crazy. 642. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Where Wyoming comes to talk. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS.
.648 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to talk sports with Frank Gambino. Frank, I touched the boot.
I saw that. I don't know why the trophy between Wyoming and Colorado State football is sitting in your office. Don't tell me it's a Chinese knockoff of the bronze boot. Please
First
don't
off,
tell me that.
It's full size.
Yeah.
I picked it up. It does feel lighter than I thought, although it still has some weight to it, right? And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm thinking, is this the real deal, or is this a copy? I mean, as far as I know, there's only one, right?
As far as I know, I didn't even know it traveled very far, other than outside of Laramie, the UW's trophy case, or the coach's office or something, you know.
Now, for those who don't know, I sent this. The story is on the Wake Up Wyoming site. I walked into the studios here, and I decided to take a picture of the studios because I think it's a nice-looking studio. And I'm a geek like that with radio. And when I went to take the picture, I noticed something off to the right, and it's the boot, which is the big rivalry boot that Colorado and Wyoming fight over during the, what's the football game?
Season, yeah, the border war, yeah.
Yeah, the border wars. And I'm looking at it, is this the real boot from the real? It's big. You know, again, it's got some weight to it, although I expected it to be a little bit more heavy than that, but still. And that is where they record that Wyoming sports show.
Oh, okay. I cannot believe that the boot, as important as it is to two schools, is in a radio station studio at 5:30 in the morning and no one is supervising it?
None whatsoever. Well, I'm here
nobody.
now, Frank.
Well,
We're
you
good.
are
I'm here now.
Okay.
I'll protect it. Yeah, I have to.
What is
But
it doing there? How did it get there? How does it go home? Or
Right.
but actually, we'd like to keep it. Really,
I can understand that maybe they brought the boot to the studios to record the radio show. But then did somebody forget it on the way out? I don't know.
How
I
do
would
you
like to
forget
find
the
out.
boot? You don't forget the boot. It's like
No,
forgetting
it's
your
gotta be in the
wallet and your
trophy.
keys.
We need to make some phone calls, Frank.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, go with sports.
All righty. The state 3A and 4A high school basketball tournament tipped off yesterday in Casper in Class 4A boys. Cheyenne East, the defending state champions, lost to Star Valley 45-43. Laramie defeated Evanston 57-38. Cheyenne Central bombed Riverton 73-48. And the Trona prevailed over Jackson 71-56. In the semifinal round of 4A boys at 7:30 tonight over at Casper College, Star Valley will meet Laramie, and then Cheyenne Central will take on the Trona at 9 p.m. East is in the consolation round. They'll play at noon over at the Ford Center. The 4A games at the Ford Center today. East and Evanston will be at noon. On the 4A girls bracket, it was Cody, the defending champion, a winner over Laramie 53-42. Cheyenne East over Star Valley 50-28. Campbell County over Kelly Walsh 52-29, and Sheridan defeated Rock Springs 59-44. So in the semifinal round at the Ford Center tonight at 4:30, Sheridan against Cody, and then Cheyenne East will take on Campbell County. Laramie will be in the breakfast game at 9 this morning against Rock Springs, and Cheyenne East will be in a game. That will be Star Valley. We'll take on Kelly Walsh at 10:30 this morning over at the Ford Center in the consolation round of 4A girls. In 3A boys, Buffalo, a winner over Worland 39-35. Worland was the defending state champions. Powell over Rollins 76-45. It was Wheatland at the buzzer beating Lovell 43-41. And Douglas was a big winner over Pinedale 80-52. So in the 3A boys semifinals, which will be at Casper College, Buffalo and Powell at 7:30, and Wheatland will take on Douglas at 9 p.m. In the 3A girls bracket, first defending champion, first of all, Mountain View over Torrington 46-31. There was Douglas, the defending champion. They defeated Lyman 59-42. Douglas has not lost a game so far this season. Buffalo over Powell 59-49, and it was Pinedale over Wheatland 49-42 in the semifinal round at the college at 4:30. Mountain View versus Douglas at 4:30, and then Buffalo will take on Pinedale at 6 p.m. The finals of the 3A and 4A tournament will be tomorrow at the Ford Center. The first championship game will be at 3:30. In junior college basketball tomorrow, the Casper College men with their Region 9 play-in game over at the T-Bird Gym. They will take on Eastern Wyoming at 4 p.m. So all the 4A and all the high school tournament games originally scheduled for the T-Bird Gym will be played at Kelly Walsh tomorrow. And the LCCC men, they will play tomorrow at 2 p.m. hosting Western Wyoming. And the LCCC men come in at 16-14. The Casper College men are 22-8.
Okay, so if you take a look again at the story that I posted, scroll down. There's a couple of bobbleheads.
That's Dave Walsh and Kevin McKinney, yeah. Well, nobody
so
stole that.
That was sitting. Yeah, see, that was sitting next to the boot. And then if you scroll down to the last picture in the story, there's a full-size picture of the boot. If you could look at that, Frank, at some point and confirm that is the real deal, because it looks like the real thing to me.
I had a chance to actually hold the boot, but I didn't really look at. I looked at it, but it wasn't. I was just in awe of it, so I never really paid attention exactly what's on there. But I will look.
Okay, you will take. Yeah, it's the last picture in the story there.
You can.
7:06 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Friday. Glad you made it. So first off, I'm in Cheyenne today, broadcasting from the studios of KGAB Radio, where here I was asking Frank Gambino. He wasn't able to give me a good answer for this, but the boot from the Border Wars rivalry is here with me. I don't know why it's been left in the studio, but it is. if it's the real deal, and it certainly looks like the real deal. We are investigating. That and Miss Mary let me know, and I'm going to have to pick on him later this hour when he does his next sports report. Every single morning I arrive, because I work in the same building as Frank, I'm the first person in the door, and I make a pot of coffee right away. And we have a nice new coffee maker there. But you see, it's got some extra buttons on it, so you understand. I'm not so bad when it comes to tech savvy. Frank, on the other hand, no. Not at all. And he admits it, too. He's just not. So what I do is I make sure when I make coffee to make enough coffee so that when I'm done, I have like 2 cups, right? And then I turn the machine off so it doesn't burn the coffee. Because, I get to work at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Frank shows up at about 5:30 a.m., and he can go and just pour himself a cup of coffee that has not been cooking all of that time. And he puts it in the microwave, heats it up. He has a couple of cups himself. Well, I'm not there. Since I'm not there, he comes in this morning and there's no coffee. So he has to figure out how to make it himself. And apparently this got frustrating, and he had to go up and ask Miss Mary about buttons to push and things like that. She was able to help him out. Frank has coffee now. But it was a bit of a crisis because I wasn't there. Mary, next time I go to do this, maybe I should set that machine up on a timer so it will have coffee for him on Friday morning when he comes in. I don't know how else to solve this, because asking Frank to push buttons is just, he knows everything there is about sports, but don't ask him to push buttons. All right, 888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject, fine by me. I'll roll with it. Just got done talking about the President's State of the Union address. We can go back to that if you want. Not a problem. But there's a few things statewide that we should take care of here. Now, I did have a chance to talk to our man in Cheyenne, Doug Randall, really early this morning, and he let me know that the Wyoming House and Senate has reconciled their budget. So there's just a few house cleaning measures, if all goes well, today, and then we're done with the legislative session. There was talk of it going an extra 3 days. They can extend it an extra 3 days. But they decided not to do that, is the last I heard. Doug's report comes up at 7:39, so he'll give you details on that. And there was, I forget who I was talking to. It was a Speaker of the House or President of the Senate. This is years ago when I first came to Wyoming. They're supposed to wrap things up at a certain time on the clock. And because in years past they were running late on that clock, they were running behind, what they started to do was push the clock back. Somebody would go over to the clock, which sits right there in the Senate there for everybody to see, and then they would either stop the clock so they wouldn't run out of time, or they would turn it back so they wouldn't run out of time. They would cheat, in other words. Then they finally came up with this idea. Look, if we need an extra 3 days, we can give ourselves an extra 3 days. Doesn't look like that's the case. Now, some of the things, let me see, gun-free zones. One of the big issues here in Wyoming, which normally doesn't get settled during a session like we had, because this was a budget session. So normally that's just reserved for the budget. But if a bill can get 2/3 of the House to agree on it, then they'll hear the bill. So this one was about eliminating gun-free zones in places like your city hall or maybe a hospital, publicly owned buildings. So that has finally passed, and the only thing that can prevent it from going through at this point is if the governor vetoes it. Now, this was the one that had passed the House of Representatives. The Senate couldn't seem to get it out of committee. And this caused a whole lot of problems getting it out of committee and getting it onto the floor of the Senate, where it was finally, after some procedural moves, put up for a vote. And then it passed in the Senate as well, so now it heads on to the governor's desk. So the story from Cowboy State Daily, a bill to eliminate Wyoming's gun-free zones easily passed. Its third and final readings, the state Senate on Thursday, advancing to Governor Gordon's desk, where only a veto can stop it from becoming law. If Gordon signs it or simply lets it pass, which is the other thing he can do. He's already done that once before in this session, is He's not going to sign a bill, but he's not going to veto it. Therefore, it still becomes law, even though he has some objections. So if Gordon lets it pass or signs it, either way, people with concealed carry permits can take concealed firearms into numerous places that were up to now had been forbidden. Some of those places include public schools, community colleges, University of Wyoming campus, Wyoming Capitol building, county-run public hospitals, things like that. And for those people who would object, why would you let someone with a gun into places like that? If you take a look at the statistics, those people who go get concealed carry permits, go through the course, go through the background checks, all of that, those tend to be the most law-abiding citizens you'll ever find. The odds of something bad happening with someone who has a concealed carry permit is pretty much slim to none, according to the statistics, which is why they wanted to do this. Also, Wyoming has been working along with some other states to bring the Second Amendment to as far as it can possibly go. In other words, the only reason you should really need a permit, which is the case in most of Wyoming, is if you committed some criminal offense and showed yourself to not be trustworthy, then they'll go ahead and take your right to a gun away. And if you want to get it back, you'll have to go through a permitting process in order to do that. Oh, let me see. I got to go ahead and answer. This is Corey, who's listening over there in Endicott, Nebraska. Get Frank one of these. Okay, I'm opening it up in Messenger because I'm assuming I have a picture here. Oh, I see. Is this just something easier for Frank to make a cup of coffee with? Oh, it's an old-fashioned percolator. Oh, yeah. You know something? I think you're right. Okay, so what Corey from Nebraska is suggesting to solve Frank's woes is we don't give him a coffee maker that has, like, buttons on it. We get him an old-fashioned percolator. So when I'm not around to make Frank coffee, he has a percolator. It's a great idea. I'm going to suggest it to him, Corey, and then I'm going to blame you for that. Okay, next. Let's see. There's oil and gas auctions. There's the drone story there. Oh, Governor O'Kay's changes to car registration and insurance. I'll have to dig into the details of that story. None of the election bills survived the Wyoming House and Senate. So there were quite a few bills. This one's, I have to be careful because it's a wildfire story and they tend to have a slant to things. But let me go ahead and read this anyway. It says, as Wyoming elections have been flooded with anonymous campaign mailers and out-of-state influences, lawmakers and other officials have looked toward legislation to increase transparency and often tighten Wyoming's voter laws. Last year, for example, the legislators passed a bill closing a loophole that had allowed federal political action committees to skirt state campaign reporting requirements. So after several attempts, lawmakers also adopted a measure to ban crossover voting. That legislation will be in effect for the first time this election year. Amid concerns about campaign money and election integrity, lawmakers brought 9 election-related bills to this session. Not one of them crossed the finish line. Not this time around. But then again, it was also a budget session, so those will probably be brought up again next year. 7:15 is the time. Let's wake up one.
Glenn Woods. He talks to you, not at you. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS. This is Wake Up Wyoming on K2 Radio.
$7:21's the time. Hang on a second here, sending a note to somebody. There we go. To Boyd, I always stay in town after Thankful Thursdays. Several people really surprised about that. I come into Cheyenne to do different events, and then I do not turn around right after the event and head straight back home. I stay in town, and then that's why I'm broadcasting from the KGAB studios today. So, okay, I was talking about the bill that would repeal other gun-free zones in state-owned buildings, and that could be a school, a library, a city council meeting, the House and Senate, University of Wyoming. So Boyd Wiggum is an attorney who's in the Cheyenne area, and he says, here is how gun-free zones are going to work. At a city council meeting, there will be someone who simply walks into a meeting with a rifle across his lap to make it clear how any elected official that values his life or that of his loved ones will vote. No words will be needed to be spoken. The message will be clear the moment of the vote. A similar message will be clear to a jury, judge during a trial. And I wonder, I don't know the rules on this, Boyd. To me, that they would have to be concealed carry. In other words, it's not open carry. So to carry in a rifle across their lap would be open carry, right? I understand that this has to do with permit holders for concealed carry. Now, I haven't seen all of what finally passed. As you know, Boyd, these bills that pass the House and Senate go through a lot of changes before they finally do get passed. So I'd like to see the final wording on this. But yeah, my understanding the last I looked at it is it wouldn't apply to somebody just walking in with a rifle across their lap to sit down and watch a city council meeting or watch a court case. The gun would have to be concealed, is my understanding of the concealed carry law. And then he went ahead and asked me, are you broadcasting in Cheyenne this morning on purpose, or did you get snowed in? So my answer to that is I really, whenever I do an event, and this is really, some people will, because I have to travel around the state for different things, which is not a problem. And there are people who will say, well, you had to go all the way to Cheyenne just to do that one event? Folks, look, first off, I love my job. And the event that I was at last night called Thankful Thursday is a blast to do. And here's how this works. I get the company car with the company gas. They put me up at the Little America while I'm here. I get to see friends while I'm in town. So I stay, a night or two. I'll leave Saturday. And I don't look at this as any kind of a problem. This isn't work. I don't get, when I'm done with the event, go straight back home. I love being here as much as I love being anywhere else in Wyoming, so that's just fine. And let's see. Story of Mark Allen Hopkins. Okay. Boyd is saying the story of Mark Allen Hopkins is an example of how Wyomingites can use violence to try to get a government body to do as desired. Okay. So he's sending me a text message, but Boyd has my phone number. You can send me text messages too. Use the Wake Up Wyoming app. It's free to download at your app store. And when it opens up, one of the options is chat. Touch chat, send me a text message. Now, Boyd's doing it because he's allowed to have my private phone number. But as far as everybody else, you can just hit chat on the Wake Up Wyoming app and send me a text message, and I'll answer stuff like that. Cheesehead is in Judah. Now, people who are on the app oftentimes make a handle for themselves, like the old CB days. Glenn, people don't understand that the people they're allowing to carry there are to protect those who aren't carrying. Bad people don't care about laws. Well, in fact, one of the arguments given in the Senate, I forget what year this was, a couple of years ago, I forget exactly when it was. Someone up there in the gallery up in the Senate was mad at what was happening down below. And so he started all these outbursts. He was escorted out. But some of the senators down below were worried, oh, my God, what if this guy is armed? And a couple of the senators had commented, well, I'd like to be able to shoot back. So if you think, Boyd, using that argument, okay, I'm just going to go ahead, because I know Boyd likes discussions like this. It's what he does as an attorney. So think of it this way. So if somebody walks in, Boyd, to a city council meeting or to a courtroom and lets everybody know that he's carrying a gun legally and sits there with that gun to intimidate, let's not forget that other people in that room are armed too. That means if it's a courtroom, the judge can be armed, certainly, and so can the other attorneys and people in the gallery. And if it's a city council meeting, so you want to intimidate the city council members to vote the way that you want them to vote. So that's why you're sitting there with a gun. Well, don't forget, city council members can carry two under this law. So they're allowed to let the guys sitting out there in the audience know, hey, we have guns too, just so you know if you want to go there. So, but that really, again, the odds of that happening, I believe, Boyd, are extraordinarily rare because in this law, it's not just anybody. You have to get a concealed carry permit under this law. And when you take a look at the statistics, those people who have concealed carry permits, they are the least likely people to ever do anything illegal with a gun. They are the most law-abiding citizens statistically that you'll ever come across. Now, for that matter, intimidating, you're saying this gives them the right to walk in and sit down and just attend the meeting while carrying that gun. But let's not forget, without this law, there would be those people who would just burst in with a gun, and nobody else in the room would be able to fight back because nobody would be allowed to carry a gun. So that's why I'm so glad when I hear about churches across America where there is people who have guns, and they've gone to church on Sunday and are carrying a gun. And some nutball comes in to shoot the church up. And this has happened on several occasions. And thank God some deacon had a gun and was able to stand up and put an end to the carnage there. That goes back to the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And the idea is rulings like this or laws like this allow the good guys to be there too with guns to fight back. If you make a law that makes it a gun-free zone, then only those people who don't care about laws will walk in with a gun. Those people who do care about the law will not have guns. That'll be the majority of people. So you can see what kind of a bad situation that can create. That's the idea behind the law. See, Blue Eyes and Douglas, I can see repealing. You can... especially around school grounds, because most of the violence has been at schools. Okay, do me a favor, Blue Eyes. I know you were typing that really fast. Would you do me a big favor and go back and rewrite that, because there's some words in there that I think I hate spell check sometimes. Spell check, I'm writing something, and spell check will go ahead and change words to what I didn't intend it, and so I'm having trouble. I think I see where you're going with that, but do me a favor, rewrite that paragraph and send it, and I'll read it right after the break here. We're coming up on local news. Right after local news, update on your weather forecast, and then you and I get back into it. Hopefully I'll have that note from Blue Eyes. I'll be able to read that on the air. Doug, your man in Cheyenne, will have an update on your legislative report at about 7:39. And then we'll talk to Don Day from Day Weather about your weekend weather forecast. Southeast Wyoming's getting a lot of snow right now. Most of the rest of you are not, he'll explain. Those folks down in Colorado getting a pretty good hit of it too, especially if you're out in the Front Range area. Let's Wake Up Wyoming.
Covering world-ending catastrophes for years to come. It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Find content, chat live, and listen on demand on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app.
7:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Thank you, Blue Eyes, She's in Douglas, for sending me the note back. So we're talking about it just needs the governor's signature, or he could just let it pass. This would be the law that would open up more places to repeal the gun-free zone idea. So you could walk with a gun into a library, city council meeting, your state capitol, University of Wyoming. As long as you have a concealed carry permit, you can go ahead and do that. So from Blue Eyes and Douglas, I can see why we need to get rid of gun-free zones. Most of the violence happens in these zones because the people that cause the shootings know there's no protection there. If they knew they were going to be shot back at, they would think twice. And that's part of what I was saying with the note that I got earlier, that I do think that anyone who would walk in to try to intimidate, hey, I'm here with a gun, try to intimidate someone, has to realize that other people are carrying too. Mike and Casper, you can carry conceal without a permit. That's true. A permit is another layer of bureaucracy. True. This is okay with me, but be trained, well trained. Okay. And this bill, to allow you into some of the places, like even University of Wyoming, you would have to go through concealed carry permitting, and that, I do believe, includes classes and so on. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Bill in Erie, you have to show your concealed carry to enter. Okay. Yeah. I have to read how the law finally passed. I would have to read it because, again, they go through a lot of changes before they're finally agreed on by the House and Senate. But I wouldn't be surprised that you would have to actually show a permit that you're carrying in order to enter the premises. But, again, always keep in mind that if a bad guy is walking in concealed carry under this law, that means there's good guys in there concealed carry as well. Whereas the logic here is before, if it's a gun-free zone, then nobody's allowed to carry. And bad guys don't care about the gun, about the laws. They'll walk in with a gun anyway, and that means they're the only one in there with a gun. So people would much rather have a situation where they get to shoot back. And again, the only thing that really stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. I'm going to be interested to see what the University of Wyoming thinks about that, because a lot of this whole discussion and this law that just passed has to do with the University of Wyoming making its own gun laws. Now, speaking of what the House and Senate passed, here's our man in Cheyenne, Doug Randall, with your legislative report.
This show contains sarcasm that some listeners may find disturbing. A sense of humor is advised. Chat with Glenn live on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
7:44 is the time coming up on 7:45. Off we go to talk to Don Day from Day Weather. So, Don, I'm here in Cheyenne with you, and a little snowy out here. And actually, it's calmed down quite a bit since 2 o'clock this morning. Oh, hang on. I know what that sound is. Mary's trying to dial him up, if you can hear that in the background. You there, Don? Okay, waiting for Don Day to connect. Nope, okay. His call dropped. Oh, okay. Well, what I was going to ask him about, we'll see if we can go ahead and get him back on. But, yeah, there's snow that's in the southeastern part of Wyoming. And if you're down in the Front Range of Colorado, you're getting a whole lot of that, too, at the same time. So if you're up away from that, especially if you're up I-25, you're heading toward, let's say, the Casper area and beyond that, you're really not getting a whole lot of anything right now. Although, last I looked, once again, people over in Jackson, Yellowstone area, that whole region, that's been getting just pummeled by snow. I mean, hardcore pummeled by snow over the past few weeks or so, and apparently they got a whole lot more last night. So, okay, on the phone now. Morning, Don. Okay, you have to slide the pot up that's to the right of mine, Mary, and that's where he should be, on that one there. Okay. All right, well, trying to connect in with Don Day from Day Weather to talk about your weekend weather forecast, which is supposed to... What? There you go. You there, Don?
Hello there.
There you are. We finally got the connection going. Okay. I'm in Cheyenne with you, and I got here about 2 o'clock in the morning as usual, and it started to pick up quite a bit snow-wise, and then it's calmed down, but it's still coming down out there.
Yeah, there's about 3 or 4 inches around the Cheyenne area. The southeast corner, as we were discussing yesterday, was going to get clipped by this disorganized storm system. 15 inches of snow North Platte, Nebraska. So the storm had a little bit of muster to it in some places, but generally a light to moderate snow event for southeastern Wyoming. It'll still snow in the southeast here through the morning, but the rest of the state going to see a clear.
I'm glad you mentioned Nebraska, though, because that means a lot of those people out in the plains that have been needing some wet got some wet.
Oh, yeah, that's like money in the bank. When you get very, very wet March snow like that, does wonders.
Okay, so we go through the weekend, sound like things calm down for a while, and that's just time to hit reload, right?
Well, we're going to have a different weekend across Wyoming than we did last weekend. Remember, rewind last weekend was when we had the huge snow in the far western mountains. We had the high winds and strong gusty conditions across the plains. This weekend is going to be different. We're going to have high pressure. Is it going to be a perfect weekend? No, but it is going to warm up. We don't see any snow chances. We'll have a little bit of wind in the afternoons, but by our standards, the winds will be about what they normally are in early March. So it's going to be a pretty decent weekend, a good weekend to go skiing, go snowmobiling, take advantage of more snow that has fallen in the high country. We do expect a little bit of snow in the western mountains late Monday and the Tuesday, and then, as you alluded to, as we get towards the middle of next week, snow chances are going to go up, especially in the south.
All right. Don, have a great weekend.
You too.
Off to Frank Gambino we go. So apparently, hang on. There we go. Now, according to Miss Mary, Frank, you were having some coffee issues.
Yes. Oh, not only that, but I think I've come up with an answer of the bronze boot trophy.
Oh, okay. Yes, please
in your
go.
studio.
Okay.
This is a theory of mine, is that in fact it is a knockoff.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it may be from China. However, there is a company, you fans remember this. You can buy your own bronze boot football trophy from Wyoming and Colorado State for only $125 at rivalrytrophy.com.
Okay.
So that they may have bought that. That I can't imagine it's going to be the original.
Okay.
And you can buy a mini bronze boot trophy. Tiny one, almost like the size of a Christmas ornament.
Wow. I'm going to have to add this to the story. Okay. Frank.
That's my theory.
Now, okay, I'm going to add to your theory here, and I'm going to run over while you're doing sports in a moment. But when I picked the thing up, and
if it says "Made in China" on the bottom, then you know.
When I flipped it upside down, there was a little gold sticker, and I want to confirm that that's what it said, because I think that's what it said. In which case, it's a knockoff. It's not the real thing. So I can take a picture of that sticker and add that to the story to let people know this is actually a knockoff. It's not the real thing.
Okay, that's my theory. So
that's
you
your
can,
theory. Okay, going with that. Now,
All
about
right.
the coffee pot. My theory on that one is...
I didn't hit the right button is what the theory
there's
is.
the thing. We have... I'm trying to remember who this sent to. This was somebody over in Nebraska, I believe. Oh, yeah, Corey from Nebraska, Endicott, Nebraska, suggests that we don't let you have coffee pots that have modern electronic buttons on it, but we get you an old-fashioned percolator.
Well, yeah, there are 5 buttons, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
One says 1 to 4. 1 to 4 what?
Yeah,
Cups
cups.
or strength?
Yes.
And then there's the next one says off.
Uh-huh.
Then the next one says auto. Auto what?
Yeah.
And then it says bold. Well, what does that mean?
Well, that means stronger coffee.
Well, how you can't press the 2 buttons together?
Okay, here's what you have to do, Frank. First, you push bold, which is what I like to do.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I push on.
Oh.
That's how that works, yeah. But here we have a better idea. For those times that I'm not there to set up your morning coffee like I do every morning, and you notice I turn it off so it doesn't burn.
Yes.
And yes, I do that just for you, Frank.
Okay, and you'll notice that there's one button called clean that I've never touched.
And nobody in this entire building knows what clean means. Go with sports.
All right, the state 3A and 4A high school basketball tournament started yesterday in Casper. And 4A boys defending champion Cheyenne East lost to Star Valley 45-43. Laramie got by Evanston 57-38. Cheyenne Central over Riverton 73-48. And the Trona, the 4th seed from the East, beat Jackson 71-56. In the semifinal round at the Ford Center later on tonight, Star Valley and Laramie at 7:30. Cheyenne Central and Natrona at 9 p.m. Cheyenne East is in a consolation round game at noon today against Evanston. In the 4A girls bracket, defending champion Cody got by Laramie 53-32. Sheridan over Rock Springs 59-44. It was Cheyenne East over Star Valley 50-28, and Campbell County defeated Kelly Walsh 52-39 in the semifinal round at the Ford Center today at 4:30. It will be Sheridan and Cody at 4:30, and then Cheyenne East will take on Campbell County at 6. Laramie is in the breakfast game this morning in the consolation round at 9 a.m. versus Rock Springs, and then Kelly Walsh will play right after that at 10:30, and they will meet Star Valley. In the 3A boys bracket, defending champion Worland was defeated by Buffalo 39-35. Powell is 23-0 after a 76-45 win over Rollins. And the Wheatland win at the buzzer over Lovell 43-41, and it was Douglas over Pinedale 80-52. So in the semifinal round, this will be at Casper College. Buffalo and Powell at 7:30 tonight, and Wheatland will take on Douglas at 9 p.m. In the 3A girls bracket, defending champion Douglas, they're 24-0. They beat Lyman 59-42. Mountain View over Torrington 46-31. It was Buffalo over Powell 59-49, and Pinedale over Wheatland 49-42 in the semifinal round at Casper College later on tonight. Mountain View and Douglas at 4:30, and Buffalo will take on Pinedale at 6. And the championship matches of the state 3A and 4A tournament will be tomorrow at the Ford Center. The first game will be at 3:30, and that's it in sports.
Okay, I turned it upside down. It says made in China.
I knew it.
Okay, so I am going to go take a picture of that and add it to the story and let everybody know the real boot is not in our studios there. It's a knockoff made in China. I'm so glad I asked you this, Frank.
I'm just praying that the real bronze boot trophy in Laramie is not made in China.
Well, the next thing is, remember I told you that when I picked it up, I thought this feels kind of light.
Yeah. The real trophy is heavy.
I kind of figured it would have to be if you actually bronzed a real boot.
Yes.
There's going to be more weight to it than this thing.
And it was just restored like in 2021.
Okay. So obviously, okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Frank. We have solved the mystery. I'll get you a coffee percolator. It's Wake Up Wyoming. The time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. I'm here in Cheyenne, Wyoming at the studios of KGAB because I was at an event last night. So usually when I'm done with an event like that, I just stay in town and keep broadcasting. I have, and we're going to do it again for you. We'll quickly go back for those people who joined the show later through the State of the Union last night, but there's a lot of other things to talk about. You can comment on that or anything else because I'm doing open phones the entire Friday. Every day you always get some open phones. On Friday, it's the entire show. So, let me see. Miss Mary's making some changes. I want to make sure. Quick change, added link for people to buy. Oh, okay, sure. Sounds good. So, what the statue story is about, when I got here to the studios, I took a picture of the studio, because I'm a geek like that. And for those who know the Border Wars, the boot, the bronze boot, was sitting in the studio. And I'm looking at it going, why is the bronze boot from the Border Wars sitting in the studio? And I picked it up, and while the base has a little bit of weight to it, the statue itself had really no weight whatsoever. What is this? So I wrote up a story about it going, what are we doing here? And I asked our sports guy, of course, Frank Gambino, and he said, flip it upside down, and it's full size. You know, do you see a Made in China sticker? Yes, I do. So if you would like a boot like that, Miss Mary's adding the link, because I have a picture of the Made in China sticker on the story as well. And Miss Mary's going to include a link, because according to Frank Gambino, you can buy a knockoff of the Border War boot, full size or smaller if you want. She'll provide the link, and you get to see what I was looking at in the studio, which made me wonder, why is that here? It's not the real thing. That was just kind of fun today. All right, so 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS is the phone. Why couldn't I say my own last name? WOODS. Yes, that's how you spell it. All right. State of the Union last night. All right. President claimed he slashed $1 trillion from the deficit. No, he didn't. He's added about $14 trillion, so that's about a lie. We are massively more in debt than before he took office, so that's just flat out a lie. He keeps pushing that lie that he cut $1 trillion. We've added more than 14 since he's been president. So, lie. Moving on. Let's see. Falsely claims he eliminated the trade deficit. No. The trade deficit is almost $800 billion a year against us. So, no, he didn't eliminate the trade deficit. The numbers just show that's wrong. He calls for a business tax hike to reduce the budget deficit. Also goes on, you might have heard on the news, he screams to the gallery out there, you think the rich are paying too much in taxes? You think the tax code's a mess? You know, words like that. And he basically was another tax the rich thing, which means he knows nothing about actually who pays the majority of taxes out there and what it does to our economy. And the fact that continuing to raise taxes, we're, once again, one of the most heavily taxed nations when it comes to business taxes. We're one of the most heavily taxed nations on the planet. More so than even China, which is why so many companies pack up and leave. One of the reasons they're overtaxed, another reason they're overregulated. And also, he acts as if we wouldn't have a budget. He wants to raise taxes, he said last night. He wants to raise taxes to lower the deficit. Mr. President, if you want to lower the deficit, spend less. And that goes for the Democrats and Republicans in the House and Senate. I had your representative from Wyoming, Harriet Hageman, on the air yesterday, and she was just beside herself. So here comes another spending bill because your government was about to run out of money again. And so to keep the government, that was going to happen today, to keep the government open, they're going to pass another Band-Aid spending bill, which was something like $680 billion or somewhere around that range. And the vast majority of it was pork spending from both parties. So it's not just your president that's been spending us into oblivion, but both political parties have as well. And neither of them seem to get it. If they want to balance the budget and get us out of debt, the answer is not, well, we need to tax more. No, the answer is you need to spend a hell of a lot less than you're doing right now. This is insane. I mean, I don't use that lightly. I mean, really, this is insane. Let's see. Falsely claims that he created a record 15 million jobs. Oh, by the way, another jobs report came out. Now, this is something I thought was really interesting. I was listening for this. So a jobs report comes out and says, a really good jobs report. And the experts were wrong again, which I always think is hysterical, that the experts are always wrong in this. But we created 300-some thousand jobs last month. And I thought, did we? You sure? And the president, of course, is already touting that. See? Uh-huh. Hey, January's jobs report, which was a very good one in its time, has just been revised down over 100,000 jobs. So in January, they came out with a jobs report that was 200-some thousand jobs, almost 300,000 jobs were created in January. Now we're in March, and they come back and say, oh, by the way, we have to take over 100,000 jobs away from that because we were wrong. This is why I never do trust these numbers when they come out in the first place. You got to wait to see what the numbers really are later on. And news media loves, Fox News does it too. Whenever jobs numbers come out, they run the big alert sound effect. Oh my God, we got the jobs numbers. Let's look at, and they get also all the television networks will have all these analysts out there picking apart these numbers, telling us what it means, especially during an election year. And yet in a few months, they're going to revise those numbers. Because as time goes by and they get more information, they begin to find out that those numbers were wrong. Now, there are cases that they might take employment numbers that didn't look so good and revise them up and say, hey, it was actually better than we thought. But there's also cases where they revise them down and go, nowhere near as good. So, okay, let's see if we can remember this. This is March. And we got employment numbers that showed 300-some thousand jobs created. So in 3 or 4 months from now, what do you think they're going to revise them to? I'm thinking, just guessing based on what happened in January, that they're going to revise them down quite a bit. Again, to lose over 100,000 jobs in January's numbers, that tells you a lot, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. That's why I never really do believe these numbers. But all right. Let's see. Biden falsely claims Republicans want to cut Social Security. Not true. And the last thing that I did early this morning in the 6 o'clock hour, Biden went after junk fees. Now, the idea of junk fees, you've dealt with them. You're trying to buy something, do business with a company. Credit card companies, banks do this. They add all sorts of paperwork and junk fees onto it and try to milk as much money as they can out of you, right? All right. And so that's what the president was complaining about. Well, he's not wrong. That's actually something he's right about. But my thought was, hey, Mr. President, if you're really worried about the American people and their wallets, and you really want to make sure that they have as much money available as possible, and this is often said that by the Democrats, that they want to help the middle class. You really want to help the middle class to keep more of what they earned? Let's get rid of junk fees. Absolutely. We'll start with government junk fees. Government bureaucracy. From small businesses to big businesses to individuals. Every one of you out there, whether you're a business owner or manager, or you work in a business of any size, or you're just an individual, how many times do you have to deal with government bureaucracy, including junk fees? Whether it's buying a car, buying a house, building a house, just trying to run your business, owning a car, buying or selling a car, whatever it might be. And especially dealing with the whole cult of climate change thing is that they try to steer the economy and get you to buy the stuff they want you to own, not the stuff that you would really rather have. You're dealing once again with all sorts of government paperwork, which is expensive, and junk fees. So, Mr. President, you want to get rid of junk fees? I am completely with you on this. And we'll start with the federal government. Then we'll work to state government, county, and city government as well. And if we got rid of a lot of bureaucracy and junk fees, how much money do you think would be left? Not all of it. Some rules and regulations are necessary. But we got rid of the garbage. How much money would be left in the pockets of the American people? 8:16 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Listen to Glenn Woods anywhere you roam with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
8:21's the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. Real quick, just a little side note. Hey, Miss Mary, grab your cell phone. I sent you a couple of pictures. So, folks, I'm in the studio of KGAB, which is in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is not my regular studio. But it's where I used to broadcast out of every single day. I sent you a couple of pictures. The phone system that they have in here, which is just different, it does the same stuff, but it just looks different. It's a different, more modern-looking setup for the phone systems, right? Now, at the bottom, there's 3 buttons. One of them is to screen hold. Okay. One of them I can push to block every single phone line coming in. I push one button, they're all blocked. But then the one on the right is the dump delay. Now, for folks who don't know, the delay button is if somebody cusses, you're hearing my voice 10 seconds later than it's actually spoken. Okay, there's a delay. That way if somebody cusses, I can push that button, and that 10 seconds disappears. So you never get to hear whatever they said. Now, I'm the only talk show host in existence that I'm aware of who got to use that dump button on a president. Donald Trump had called the show, and he got passionate, and he cussed on air live, and my hand slapped the dump button, and I realized I just dumped a president. Wow, I dumped Trump. Holy cow. As far as I know, I'm the only one who... But anyway, look at the, Miss Mary, if you would, the bottom right button there for delay. You know the symbols that they use for cussing, like the hashtag and the percentage mark and the explanation for it and stuff? Yeah, that's what they use. So you know that's delay. That symbolizes cussing right there. I just thought that was kind of cool. All right. I just got word our man in Cheyenne, Doug Randall, stuck his head in the studio during that news and information break that you had there. And he said that actually the Wyoming legislative session, they were supposed to just pretty much wrap up everything tonight. Budget would have been passed. And then today would have been just cleaning up the final formalities, and they were done. And he said, no, that's not the case. They're not anywhere close at all. So, and there's even talk of a special session. He doesn't know yet. We'll see what happens over there. Yeah, Mary says, that's funny. At first I thought you were telling me I need a block all button. Actually, Mary, if you take a look at the phone system in our studio, you'll see there is a block all button on it, which you can block. Well, I can push it, and the entire phone system lights up blocking everybody if I wanted to do that, which I've only done that a couple of times in my career because I wanted to do a monologue for a while. I didn't want to take any callers, so I just hit that button, and it just busies all the lines out all at once. Okay. I want to give you guys, by the way, speaking of phones, 888-97-WOODS, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about or change the subject. Sometimes, the only way you can teach somebody is by just letting them experience it. There was a mayor in a California city, I'm forgetting which one right now, and she was in favor of defunding the police and had all sorts of horrible things to say about the police, too. And so her city was doing that until one day, and even though she did this, I still feel bad for her because of what happened. She was coming home. She got out of her car. She was walking across her front yard, and she was jumped by several men, young men, in her front yard. She was beaten up really bad with broken bones because they were after her purse, basically. But, yeah, they beat her up really bad with broken bones in her front yard right in front of her little kids. Not kids, little kids. That changed her tune about defund the police. And as often is said, what a conservative is basically a liberal who got mugged. And that's what happened to her. And her entire tune changed. Get a load of this. A Democrat district attorney denied ability to vote after someone cast a ballot in her name. Yeah, this is a Democrat Texas district attorney. Quote, it's very concerning that this could happen to a candidate. Well, how about to anybody? But this is what she says. Very concerning this could happen to a candidate. And I just want to warn people, make sure you know you're voting under terms of your name. I just never saw this happen. Really? Because conservatives like me and other such people, we've been trying to tell you about this. Brad is in Cheyenne, wants to do a reminder about the poker run. Brad, how have you been?
Good morning. I'm doing really good. I hope all you folks out there in KGAB world are doing good. Everything's good with me.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, remember, you're not just being heard on KGAB. You're being heard across the whole region. So there's a lot of people who can show up to the poker run.
Oh, well, I would like that. You know, the poker run's going to be on Saturday, May the 25th, okay? So that's Memorial Day weekend. And you can register on Friday from about 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock in the evening, and then Saturday morning at 11 o'clock until, have to be finished by 11 o'clock. You can start at about 7 o'clock at the fire hall. And until then, you can go to lpfz.org and register, pay for your poker hands, buy any extra things you want to. There will be no plastic transactions the day of the poker run, Saturday the 25th. Each poker hand is $40, and that buys you a meal. Extra meals can be purchased for $10, and also extra. You can buy as many poker hands as you want to at $40 a piece. And if you buy, more poker hands, then you have people to eat the meals, and you can donate the meals to other people. That works really good. We have live auction, we have giveaways, and we have raffles. A lot of fun. The 4-H from Wheatland, Wyoming is going to be up there selling breakfast Saturday morning, burritos and coffee and donuts and things like that. So it's an awful lot of fun. It's roughly 50 miles round trip, Jeeps, side-by-sides, quads, motorcycles. If you're elderly or handicapped or don't have a vehicle but you still want to participate, you can purchase the hands and draw the cards at the fire hall. And I think we pay down 5 places. It can be $5,000 or more. So, it goes to fund a really good cause, which is the fire department, in our trucks and diesel and tires and stuff like that. We have no paid employees. It's all volunteer. About 14 miles north of Wheatland, go on exit 94 west on El Rancho Road, follow the signs. It's 40 miles total from Wheatland. And hopefully it will rain or snow on Friday, give us some mud, keep the dust down, and we
just
have
makes it more fun.
Awful lot of fun.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for calling in.
Yeah.
I'm going to run to news time. I appreciate it. Call back as we get closer. Coming up on 8:30, local news coming your way. Update on your weather forecast and a nice long segment of open phones at 888-97 Woods. Wake Up Wyoming.
He's not a politician, but his pants are on fire. Could someone grab an extinguisher? Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
8:36 8:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Friday. Glad you made it. Open phones, 888-97-WOODS. That's 888-97-WOODS. Or like so many other people are doing, use the Wake Up Wyoming app, which is free to download at your app store. Touch the chat option. Among many other options you get for free. Send me text messages. Bunch of people do, and I answer them back both on and off the air during the course of the show. Or again, use the number to call in, 888-97-WOODS. Doesn't matter what I'm talking about. You can go ahead and change the subject. I'll just kind of roll with it. So now, not surprising, new survey. Yeah, I always take surveys and polls with it. Not just a grain of salt, but a big bag of it. Like a 20-pound bag, if not a dump truck full of salt. But okay, this one I can believe. Congress has a 12% approval rating. See, whenever I see that, this is a Gallup survey. Whenever I see something, they have a 12% approval rating. Who are these 12%, these morons that approve of what Congress is doing? Yeah, I can't imagine who these people are. There's still 12% that actually like what Congress is doing? Now the headline says, and Congress is not happy about it. Well, hope not. Would love you to do something about that, but okay. 12% approval rating. Before I move on with the rest of the story, I want to know who are the 12% who actually approve of what Congress is doing. Are they people who work for government? I would bet a good percentage of these people are people who work for government and approve of what government is doing. And then whatever might be left, which would be a really small number, we can just go ahead and consider them to be morons. Can we all agree on that? Okay, moving on with the story. Congress has a 12% approval rating according to a Gallup survey. The results are not a surprise to anyone, especially since the legislative branch hasn't had an approval rating above 40% since 2005. However, it's not just the public that isn't happy with Congress. Members of Congress aren't happy with Congress either. Quote, I think there's a couple of reasons why people are so frustrated with the Senate. Oh, this is going to be great. This is John Cornyn, a Republican in Texas. But I don't care if he's Republican. There's a Democrat in here, too. Let's hear what members of Congress think is the reason. One is we're not actually doing anything. We don't vote on Mondays. We come in on Tuesdays. We vote in the evening. And then we leave after lunch on Thursday. And this is one of the least productive Senates I've ever served in. Well, okay, I actually like it when government doesn't get a whole lot done. I don't want government to get a whole lot done. I'm more of your libertarian guy. I like the smallest possible government there is. So the less, you see how much damage they do when they get something done. I prefer it when they don't get things done. I would prefer that our House and Senate on the federal level acted more like the Wyoming House and Senate and just met once a year for a short while, and that was it. And they didn't get a lot done. All right. Hear what a Democrat has to say. So fly in, fly out days. You know, because we're only here, call it maybe 10 days, 10 nights a month, 11 nights a month maybe, said Jared Mikowski, Democrat, Florida. So, you know, we're running around. We don't all serve on the same committees. Some people are giving speeches on the floor, and the floor is empty, which is something I always thought was hysterical. In fact, let's go back when C-SPAN first came around. C-SPAN they do have some talk shows and so on, but mostly C-SPAN is supposed to be there just to cover what's going on in Congress so we can watch Congress, right? When they first started doing C-SPAN, there were members of Congress that would show up, both House and Senate, in the middle of the night and give speeches on the floor so it can be rerun again and again and again. And as they were giving passionate speeches, they were pointing like someone was there that they were pointing at. Really, really a good show. There was nobody there. It was just a show. It was fake. And many of the debates that you see when someone stands up and reads something or is involved in some kind of a floor debate, there's hardly anybody in the room. So the debates are fake, too. All right. Again, this is the Democrat. We're running around. We don't all serve on the same committees. Some people are giving speeches on the floor. The floor is empty. No one here when they're doing that. As per approval ratings, the story says, the same Gallup survey found that 83% outright disapprove of the way Congress is handling its job, and 5% had no opinion. So, okay, let me see. Republican leader of the chamber said, I've been here when the senator has worked and where the committees have worked and where senators had a chance to actually be a senator and represent their state. And he said, I think we can do a whole lot better, he said. Well, gee, you think? Okay. So the story says there's no frustration with the way which bills are negotiated. I'm sorry, there's also frustration with the way bills are negotiated. It often happens behind closed doors, and many members don't know what a piece of legislation is until it gets released to the public. And you know how this works. They have a bill that's hundreds of pages long, and it gets dumped in front of a senator or a member of the House of Representatives, and they're told, we're going to be voting on this in a couple of hours. And there's no way, even with the help of their staff, there's no way they can read all of this. It's not possible. But that's how your government does it. Quote, the crazy idea that a handful of people can write bills behind closed doors, roll them out without adequate time to read them. That's not the way the Senate should operate. And yet it does. Now, this gentleman I'm quoting is running against John Thune, Republican, South Dakota, to be the chamber's party leader. Whoever wins that will replace McCarthy. McConnell, not McCarthy. So anyway, you get the idea. And they're so shocked that we're disapproving. I still want to know, who are the 12% who approve? I bet most of them work in government. That's why they approve. David in Texas. Corn from Texas is a Democrat. Corey from Nebraska, and Corrin is running for the Republican leader of the Senate, right? White Eagle, Arapahoe. The 12% is the Democrats in the Senate and the House and their family, probably. Grandpa Rich in Thermopolis, the State of the Union was a big lie. Yeah, that's the case. Okay, well, this is, by the way, the same kind of polls come out when it comes to news media. When it comes to whether it's television news media, CNN or MSNBC or Fox, or the newspapers, online news media sources, people surveyed, how much do you trust the media? And the numbers are extraordinarily low. I mean, really extraordinarily low. And yet the media oftentimes does the same thing that many members of Congress do. They don't look to themselves. If the numbers are really that low as to our trust in news media to deliver us real, actual, factual, reliable news, they end up blaming us and everybody else rather than looking at themselves and thinking, well, if we're not trusted, what are we doing wrong? And so for those members in government, from the bureaucrats to the politicians, if your numbers, because no one likes the bureaucracy, no one likes the executive branch, people hate Congress. So if that's the case, then you would think at some point they might look at themselves and go, God, we're not really doing well, are we? We ought to do something to fix that. Now, I know it's one of the reasons I like the private sector over government any day. Because if you're in a private business and the business finds out they have a low approval rating, well, the boss is going to get on everybody real fast. Because a low approval rating means that they're going to go out of business, that everybody's going to be unemployed. People are going to go bankrupt. So you can't have that. But Congress doesn't face any of that. They're not going to be unemployed. They're not going to be bankrupt. Nobody's going to be ruined because of low approval numbers. It's just confusing to them, that all. But they don't feel really the need to do anything about it. 8:45. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Want to talk to Glenn? Call 888-97-WOODS or chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
Coming up in 8:49, off we go to talk to Frank Gambino about sports. So, Frank, I'm having to explain to my sister a guy thing, which can be difficult to do with a sister, right?
No, they should have complete and absolute understanding at this point in their lives.
Yeah, they don't. Okay, we don't understand women any more than women understand us. So my oldest niece, they have a baby.
Yeah.
Right? He's a little over a year old now.
Okay.
And there was a big machine out in the front of the house on the road. I mean, a big machine doing city road work.
Okay.
And so Daddy picks up his little boy and walks out to the road, and here they are just watching the big machine. And I'm trying to explain to my sister, it's a guy thing you wouldn't understand. Even a kid who's like a year and a half old gets it.
Oh, I did that for forever. I would take when my kid was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We would go to like construction sites in Casper and just watch him work.
Yeah. Yeah, the kid's making broom broom noises.
Oh,
he
yeah.
gets it. He totally does.
And I saw one video. They're working on the construction, and the dad brings the kid out, but the kid's got his own like Tonka toys. Yep. Remember those things, the construction toys from Tonka?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so he's playing with the Tonka thing, and there's this big thing, you know, working on the road. It is a rite of passage. No cause for alarm.
Yes.
No cause for alarm.
Mm-hmm. No. And then you've seen the videos where the guy with the backhoe picks up a scoop of dirt and dumps it into the Tonka toy.
I saw that, yeah.
I've seen several videos of that, and I thought
that's awesome.
Those are just the coolest guys ever. Yeah, absolutely. That kid will remember that moment for the rest of his life, especially now that we have the internet and he can just keep hitting like replay. But ladies out there, don't worry if your husband picks up the boy and walks out there to watch construction equipment. It doesn't matter. Both the father and the little boy are making the same broom broom noises. Okay, go with sports.
All right, the state 3A and 4A high school basketball tournament moves along today in Casper. In yesterday's first round of the 4A boys bracket, it was Star Valley over defending champion Cheyenne East 45-43. Laramie defeated Evanston 57-38. Cheyenne Central a winner over Riverton 73-48, and the Trona defeated Jackson 71-56. In the semifinal round, it'll be at the Ford Center later on tonight. Star Valley and Laramie at 7:30. Cheyenne Central will take on the Trona at 9. Cheyenne East is in the consolation game at noon. They will take on Evanston also at the Ford Center. In the 4A girls bracket from yesterday, defending champion Cody, a big winner over Laramie 53-42. Sheridan a winner over Rock Springs 59-44. Cheyenne East over Star Valley 50-28, and Campbell County defeated Kelly Walsh 52-39. So it'll be Sheridan and Cody in a semifinal round game in 4A girls at the Ford Center at 4:30, followed by a semifinal between Campbell County and Cheyenne East at 6 p.m. Laramie is in the breakfast game that's going to start here in a few minutes against Rock Springs in the consolation round. And at 10:30, the Kelly Walsh girls will take on Star Valley also in the consolation round. 3A boys, defending champion Worland losing to Buffalo in the first round, 39-35. It was Powell a winner over Rawlins, 76-45. Lovell lost to Wheatland at the buzzer, 43-41. That was quite a play. And Douglas a winner over Pinedale, 80-52. So in the semifinal round of the 3A boys bracket, these games will be played at Casper College. Buffalo and Powell at 7:30, and Wheatland will take on Douglas at 9 p.m. And then 3A girls bracket, Douglas, the defending champion, they are 24-0. They beat Lyman 59-32. Mountain View over Torrington 46-31. It was Buffalo a winner over Powell 59-49, and Pinedale over Wheatland 49-42. Semifinals also at Casper College. Mountain View and Douglas at 4:30 this afternoon. Buffalo and Pinedale at 6 p.m. this afternoon. The championship games in the 3A and 4A state basketball tournament will be tomorrow. The first game will be at 3:30 at the Ford Center. That's in sports.
So you're going to be at this all weekend.
I was at it all day. I mean, I watched 8 games yesterday. We had a buzzer-beating shot that I think we posted on the Wake Up Wyoming Facebook page. That Wheatland beat Lovell at the buzzer. So you have all these fans that are just ecstatic, and then you know when something really bad happens to you, you take both of your hands and put them on top of your head like this, like you're being arrested. That is the universal sign, like, oh my God, I can't believe that just sucked.
That just, absolutely. Well, Frank, you're going to be at it all weekend then,
yes, that is the universal sign.
Yeah, of my life sucks at this point.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of. News time. National local update on the weather forecast, and another hour of open phones. Don't forget, 888-97 Woods.
6.
Nine 9:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Friday, and I'm glad you made it. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me in open phone, so you can interrupt me at any time. Get it out of your system before we get into the weekend. You feel a whole lot better, and people will be able to tolerate being around you. So 888-97-WOODS. That's 888-97-WOODS. So when COVID was going on, a lot of us in this region of the country didn't trust the whole idea of the vaccine. And then those who did get shots, some of them weren't all that into the boosters. Depends on who you're talking to. Okay? So, really. But now, there's still people walking around wearing masks, and there's a gentleman here I'm going to tell you about who you're not going to believe what he's done with the COVID shots, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Right now, I got Judy and Casper. Hello, Jude.
Hey, good morning. We had a Republican convention last night at the CODA, and it was actually kind of fun. I went into Reed Rasner's because I RSVP'd so I could go in and listen to him and, ask some questions. I did. I had, I don't know, he probably had 20 people in the room, and people were asking him questions because he does have a little bit of support here in Casper. I had a good time. Rose was kicked out because she was so confrontational to him last time that, unless you RSVP'd, you couldn't be in that room last night.
Right.
So it was kind of funny. I said, well, I'm going to video the guy for a little bit and listen to him. So, go to the convention and listen to what's going on over there. And then I ran in after that. I stayed about, half hour, 45 minutes. It was only an hour long. And I got my questions out, got it on video and audio. And then I went over to the convention half of it. Rose and I are alternates. Mm-hmm. And the two people that didn't show up, so we can vote and we can help change the party platform. And that's what they were working on last night. I got in there. There was one section about foreign nations owning property in Wyoming, and it passed. I added to it in investors or what do they call them, stockholders, and they put it in there. So that was good. I met another gentleman who added some stuff. It was actually a pretty eventful thing. And you know who I got to sit next to? Kyle True.
You'll have to educate us.
Oh, remember when I was running my mouth online and saying the gravel pit deal? Okay, so I sat next to him and his son. He's actually a really nice guy.
Okay.
And we had a pretty good time on that, but I just wanted to thank everybody for showing up last night. It turned out pretty good. It was my first time to ever do something like that, and I think I'm going to become a precinct captain. Because I think I can do some good there. I'm going to try to get Rose on board, too.
Okay. All right. So now this wasn't the only one. Let me see. All these little get-togethers are happening during the course of the year. When do we have our primary here in Wyoming? It's coming soon, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure on the date. I'll have to ask. But I was just talking about last night and, making amends to everything. Oh, my arch enemy, Rob Hendry, he goes, as we were talking about the gravel pit, he goes, well, how do you like planning and zoning now? Because that's the only way that we're going to be able to stop this gravel pit, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I guess you got me on that one, Mr. Hendry.
Yeah. Well, actually, the gravel pit is starting to make news beyond Wyoming. I've seen some more national news sources that were kind of interested in the story just because of the number of people who showed up against it.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot. Do you remember that term, not in my backyard?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what that is, in a way to me. But it's beautiful up there. They shouldn't do it. It would be wrong to do it. Now, we came up with a question, too. What if he did it on his own property? And I'm a property rights nut. I am.
Yeah.
I don't think you could do too much about it
Right.
because I can't change my position on what you do on your property is your own business, as long as it doesn't interfere with someone else next to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it probably wouldn't interfere with anyone. So I don't know. It's going to be a biggie, and I'm going to stand with the property owners over there. But, if he wants to do it on his own property, that's a different ballpark for me.
All right. Thanks. Have a good weekend, Jude.
You too. I hear you're in Cheyenne, huh?
Yeah, and it's snowing like crazy. It has been all morning.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. DJ Wildfree in Mills also is where Judy lives. August primaries are in mid-August, somewhere in mid-August. Okay. RH is in Wiggins, Colorado. Glenn, that Bernie Sanders photo might be fake. 2 different events. I take everything with a grain of salt, but still, it made me chuckle. I'm going to have to take a look at. Let me see here. So I'm assuming that you went ahead and sent me a picture or something. People send me pictures. By the way, what I'm doing is I'm responding to people who send me text messages through the Wake Up Wyoming app while I'm on the show. Okay. So here's a picture of Bernie Sanders before the show and showtime. Oh, he's wearing a mask. Yeah, probably not real, but before the show, then this happened a lot during the whole COVID era. You guys remember this. There were politicians and news media people who, when they were in front of the cameras, they would wear a mask. But as soon as the cameras were not running, they would take the mask off. Now, we all remember that and the level of hypocrisy because we caught them. It's not they think the cameras are off, but there's other people out there with cell phones and so on shooting video of them. And we see as soon as the official cameras are off and they think no one's watching, they would take those masks off. Where I was going before I got in with Judy, and by the way, you're allowed to interrupt me, that's fine, was people during the COVID era, especially in this part of the country, had a lot of problems with the whole vaccine idea and the mask wearing thing. And it really does get me that not just mask manufacturers, but respiratory therapists have said that those masks don't do a whole lot, especially when you think of the weave of the mask compared to the size of the COVID germ. It does actually very little to wear a mask when you're sick. You do stop. When we talk, we all spit. Everybody does. And there is some humidity on your breath, so we'll catch some of that. But the vast majority of the germs are passing both ways through, right? Okay. I have a story that I'm going to get to. Come read about the German man who has received 217 doses of the COVID vaccine. Oh, my God. He's got to be like a mutant that the Avengers are going to be fighting soon. Rose in Casper wants to talk about Reed Rasner. Hello, Rose.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi.
Well, I won't tell you that I was at the county convention because Judy just filled you in on that. I stood in as an alternate.
Okay.
But, so I went down to the Copper Coffee Cup, to his first meet and greet event, and he started his discussion, his roundtable discussion, talking about that he wasn't going to talk about state issues. And at that point, that's where I said, well, wait a minute, how can we vet a candidate that doesn't want to talk about state, local issues, somebody that hasn't ever been to city council meetings, county commission meetings, convention meetings, anything? How are you a candidate for the people if you're not involved? So then at the last the Republican get-together before the convention last night, he comes up and he approaches me and he says, well, that was on you. You had to stick around and listen to what I had to say. And I said, no, I don't need a representative that changes what he's going to say to me to tell me what I want to hear. It's as simple as that. I don't need cheap rhetoric. Anybody can spout that. So last night when I wanted to go in to listen, I'm blacklisted. They wouldn't even let me in. They said, you're on the list. We will not let you in. I got it recorded too, so.
Okay.
I don't, the censorship, and he says he's not a politician and that he's never going to be intimidated by anybody regardless of our failed attempts. Well, that sure seems to be talking out both sides of the mouth.
Well, one way to make sure you're not intimidated is don't let those people who would intimidate you in the room. There. Yeah, it's an easy way to solve
I
that. Yeah, I guess that's it. It's a tactic, I guess, Rose. I guess, okay. But, you get to add that. You put another notch in your belt. You take that as a badge of honor that, hey, he blacklisted me. Cool.
Well, yeah, I do, but I just need it would be great if the people of Wyoming would get on board and understand and start asking the right questions of this guy instead of biting like a bunch of catfish, hook, line, and sinker.
Okay.
All right.
You have a great weekend. 9:16 is the time. Let's Wake Up Wyoming.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Make your voice heard at 888-97-WOODS. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
9:22 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, Chet. Chet is in Yoder, and he just sent me this text over the Wake Up Wyoming app, and then something happened, and I hate this. Autocorrect can just really screw you up. In fact, there's times I've been writing something, and I've watched as autocorrect has changed a word from a previous sentence, and I happened to be looking when it did it. It just switched the word to some other word. And I happened to, if I hadn't have been looking, I wouldn't have seen it do it. It never gave me a highlight to let me know that it thought it needed change. It just changed the word. So, yeah, autocorrect can do a lot of garbage and make us all look. And I don't need any more help. Miss Mary will tell you because she's the one who goes through and checks for mistakes. I'm a little bit dyslexic, so I don't need any more help, and autocorrect definitely doesn't help. So Chet has gotten so mad at autocorrect, he writes, fascist, dumb autocorrect. So not only is he calling autocorrect dumb, he's accusing autocorrect of being fascist. Bunch of Nazis. I get it. Okay. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Change the subject on me if you want. That's fine. So, okay, I was talking about the COVID thing, right? Story reads, you've heard of anti-vaxxers. But have you heard of hyper-vaxxers? Just the opposite, yeah. That's what you call a guy in Germany, a man who has received 217 doses of the COVID jab over a 29-month period. German man received 217 COVID vaccine shots over a 29-month period. I wonder if he's hoping that he's going to get superpowers like out of one of the Marvel movies or something like that. Why would you do something like that? Okay. Let's see. Acting against the recommendations of national health authorities, I bet. Received 217 coronavirus okay. Again, I still have to go back and go, well, why would you do something like this to yourself? I still wonder when I walk into, let's say I go to the grocery store, and I see it's not a lot, but I see people walking around wearing masks. And I guess maybe they haven't really heard or looked to see if those things are really effective or not, especially the paper ones. The paper ones are the worst. The only reason that doctors wear those during surgery, for example, as I mentioned earlier, when we speak, we all spit. We all do. And that helps spitting if you're trying to do surgery on somebody. Plus, there's always some humidity with some germs on it coming out of your mouth. But if somebody is sick, the vast majority of the germs are still getting right through that both ways. So those, and the cloth masks are not really much better than that. So, yeah, we still do see those people who, I've seen people who are still wearing multiple masks. I've seen that on occasion, especially when traveling through an airport, something like that. But okay, they think that to me, it's a false sense of security. Now, I know some of you will disagree with me, but to me, that's a false sense of security. Give you an example. I was aboard it was a small 4-seater little Cessna airplane, right? Not mine. I was flying with a friend of mine. He was flying, and we hit some bumps. And so he has this little, it's just a strap that hangs up by the door. And I reached up and grabbed the strap when we were bumping along. And then I laughed and I looked at him and said, isn't it kind of funny that we have a strap here for when we hit bumps? And if the strap isn't here, then I would feel the urge to put my hand up on the dashboard. Now, what does that do? Nothing. Doesn't do anything. It makes me feel secure. But I know for a fact that actually I've done nothing to help myself at all. But there's that feeling of security. And oftentimes I think that's what we do. In fact, you've done that when you're in a car. You know, you've reached out if you hit some bumps and maybe grabbed a hold of something. It doesn't do anything. But it makes you feel steadier. And so, well, there you go, right? All right. The 62-year-old German man. Wonder what his immune system is still. He still has a functioning immune system, the story says, after receiving 217 COVID-19 vaccine shots over a 29-month period. The individual underwent repeated jabs deliberately and for private reasons, is the quote, against the recommendation of the national health authorities, according to a study published this week in the latest infectious disease journal. The study indicates the man received his first coronavirus shot. It talks about the dates back June 3rd, 2021, and started getting doses produced by, and it talks about the company all the way up through, well, just recently, as a matter of fact. So now it all totals 217 shots. And there was a time, according to a graph that's here, there was the boosters that he received, there was a time he was getting boosters like crazy. All right. If that's what makes him feel better, but I also wonder, does that also make him sicker because of that? He seems to be okay. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but not everybody has been. To me, and again, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but the COVID vaccine was much like this. If I have a headache, I can take an aspirin and I'm good. It'll cure my headache. All right. Somebody else might take an aspirin and it could kill them. So for those people who've had side effects with the COVID vaccine, and that has happened, I think it really just in my non-medical opinion, it just matters as to what your body's like. I mean, I can go ahead and grab a big spoonful of peanut butter and eat it, and it tastes great to me. Other people will die because of it. So, Jan and Cheyenne. Morning, Jan. Bernie Sanders did wear a mask last night. Part of the time he was carrying it. Oh, okay. So Bernie Sanders showed up to the State of the Union address with a mask, but didn't wear it consistently. Fat lot of good that did him. Coming up on 9:30, local news coming your way right after local news update on the weather forecast. You and I get back and do it again. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
If it's happening in Wyoming, it's on Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods from K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97 Woods.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Let's see if he's still on the phone. Hey, Cody, did you make it through?
I made her through, yeah. No problem at all.
Sorry about hanging you on that long over there. I got on the roll. So, okay, what you got first?
No, I'm glad to have time. Hey, talking about false securities, another big false security, gun-free zones.
Yeah.
And I think I'm joining the whole state of Wyoming, or at least the whole gun owners in Wyoming, doing a happy dance about that. Those two files have gone through.
Yeah.
Maybe you've talked about that some. I kind of been in and out.
But, I did, and I did get some interesting comments about it, but to me it really comes, including one gentleman who I like and have some respect for. He's a lawyer in the Cheyenne area, who was thinking, but then someone's going to walk into like a city council meeting and sit down, showing a gun to try to intimidate people to vote the way he wants. And I'm thinking, but the city council members can have guns too, as well as other people in the gallery, so you forget about them.
Well, and the other main point that people keep kind of forgetting is that to carry into the schools or the government complexes, you're supposed to still have a concealed carry permit, and they're supposed to be carried concealed.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of strapping on your hog leg and tromping it and trying to intimidate with it, that's not going to work. Covered.
But also, statistics do show by a great majority crimes that are committed, crimes of violence, any kind of, with a gun, the odds of it being done by a concealed carry permit holder, no, they're just a different quality of people. What they have to go through and the kind of person they have to be to get that permit, the odds of them flying off the hook and doing something crazy are almost zero.
Almost zero. I mean, the crime rate among concealed carry holders in the United States is for all intents and purposes, zero. And that's kind of amazing, all the thousands and thousands of holders. The two other points about it, one, the one of the counter comments was like, well, when the cops won't know who the good guys are and the bad guys are, there's going to be this huge gunfight. And to counter that, it's like the cops are almost never there. I mean, if the cops were there, the guy wouldn't start the shooting deal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have all the respect in the world for law enforcement, but especially in Wyoming, the delay is at the fastest minutes, and the things that happens in minutes is astronomical. So, I mean, the cops, bring your mop and your broom because they're cleaning the mess up. They're not going to be in the middle of the fight.
Some years ago, I was called to write up one of my favorite places in Wyoming, the Occidental Hotel in Buffalo. And I arrived there in the spring to write an article about the place, and we got snowed in. Spring blizzard, right? So I'm stuck there at the Occidental with, first off, this was cool, Cody, a ghost hunter team. That was fun. And there was a couple that they were from the UK, and they rented a car in Washington State, and their idea was to zigzag across the continent and see America, which I thought was a great idea. And so here we are sitting in the restaurant all together, huddled against the storm, and the lady from the UK asked me, so why do so many people around here carry guns? We don't do that in the UK. And everybody at the table from Wyoming, including me, stood up and lifted our jackets and said, you mean this? And we all did. And my answer to her was, look, when you're in Wyoming, if let's say you run into a problem, well, first off, again, like you were saying, with all due respect to the police, if I can get cell service, right? But even if I can get cell service to call 911, then they have to get to where I am. By the time they get all the way out there, it's long over. So I'm going to have to deal with this myself. And now this can still go for big city people because the police still have to get to where somebody is in the big city. They might get there faster. But like the old saying, Cody, when seconds count, the police are minutes away.
Absolutely. The other thing is a quick visit about the politics in this, the whole process were sort of interesting. It was interesting. Generally I've kind of been a fan of Driscoll, but I'm not sure why he handled it the way he did. And then I kind of chuckled at old Wanitzer whining before the committee about how you guys are telling everybody how I'm voting. It's like, would you be ashamed of that?
To Wanitzer, my comment to him yesterday, because I played that audio of his on the air, and I said, look, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. This is the job you took, and that job comes with everybody watching everything you say and do. That's what the job is, and if you don't like that, then leave. Now, as far as Ogden Driscoll is concerned, he was not against the gun bill. That wasn't his problem, because I played his comments on the air as well. What he had a problem with is every time somebody, let's say they're trying to move a bill out of committee and it fails. Okay, so we'll change the rules so it can get out. Then it gets onto the floor and it's going to fail again. So we'll change the rules so it doesn't fail. And his point was, what's the purpose of the rules if we keep changing them every time something doesn't go our way?
Yeah, but we had overwhelming support for these, and it felt like he was more worried about the process than he was about actually making good law for the state.
Right. Yeah.
Which was kind of upsetting.
I think he was worried about the process. Yeah. All right. Hey, Cody, have a great weekend.
Thanks for the time.
Sure, absolutely. Appreciate you hanging on. Miss Mary, did our other gentleman make it through, or was it just Cody there? All right. So as we head on into the weekend, I have a whole pile of stories that I wasn't able to get to that I really wanted to get to. Let's see. Woke Alert. You know the company, the North Face? They make some great outdoor gear. They have customer research that has... I wanted to get into that story. Maybe I'll try to get into that next week. North Face customer research to have racial re-education program as part... Okay. See, again, I would like the North Face just to sell great outdoor gear. I don't want to get into their woke messaging. That was something maybe I'll get into. Also, let me see. Fact checkers who aren't Snopes is one of them. I got some articles here on quite a few fact checker organizations out there who are anything but fact checkers. Again, they rig the data. That and a whole lot more will come up next week. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
He's talking to himself in a padded room, and you could be the voice in his head. Join the conversation on Wake Up Wyoming, 866-97-WOODS.
Well, Frank, Glenn asked me to hop on the line with you, and it turns out that his connection dropped. So I don't know what we're meant to be talking about, but it's you and me for this segment, bud.
Okay, we can talk. We're here at the Ford Center in Casper. The state 4A and 3A high school basketball tournament is going on right now. And Laramie, in a consolation round game, is leading Rock Springs 17-11 with 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. And yesterday's action from the 4A boys state tournament, it was Cheyenne East, the defending state champion, losing to Star Valley 45-43. Laramie, for the boys, beat Evanston 57-38. Cheyenne Central looked good. They beat Riverton 73-48. And it was thrown over Jackson 71-56. So the semifinals in 4A boys will have Laramie and Star Valley at 7:30 tonight here at the Ford Center. Cheyenne Central will play in the Trona at 9 p.m. Cheyenne East plays here at noon against Evanston in the consolation round. In the 4A girls bracket, Cody, the defending champion, they will improve to 21-1 with a 53-32 win over Laramie. And Sheridan will win over Rock Springs 59-44. Cheyenne East beat Star Valley 50-28 in the first round of the 4A girls bracket, and Campbell County over Kelly Walsh 52-39. So Rock Springs and Laramie right now. Star Valley and Kelly Walsh will play at 10:30 in the consolation round. Sheridan and Cody in the semifinal round at 7 o'clock here at the Ford Center, and then Cheyenne East and Campbell County at 6 p.m. at the Ford Center, the other 4A girls semifinal. In the 3A boys bracket from yesterday, defending champion Worland lost to Buffalo 39-35. Powell, a big winner over Rawlins, 76-45. Powell is 23-0. It was Lovell losing to Wheatland at the buzzer, 43-41, and Douglas improved to 21-3 with an 80-62 win over Pinedale. So Douglas and Wheatland in one semifinal game for 3A boys at 9 p.m. at Casper College, and Buffalo and Powell play in the other semifinal at 7:30, also at the college. And in 3A girls, the defending champion Douglas looked great again. Here 24-0, they beat Lyman 59-32. And then there's also Mountain View win over Torrington 46-41. Buffalo beat Powell 59-49. And Pinedale a winner over Wheatland 49-42. So in the semifinal round, Mountain View and Douglas will play at 4:30, and then Buffalo will play Pinedale at 6 p.m. That should be a very, very interesting game there. Both teams are 20-3. The championship games of the 3A and 4A state tournament will be tomorrow here at the Ford Center, and that first game will start at 3:30 in the afternoon. It is March Madness to the max. Is that enough, Mary, or do we need more?
You know, that's just about enough. Give me 1 second. I think we're connecting through to Glenn right now. Do you hear that?
Oh, I hear it.
I know. We're doing a fun thing where I get to be here in studio, you get to be out at the Wyoming Center, and Glenn is coming on Facebook right now with all hope to close us out for the day.
Nobody's home.
Nope, nobody's home. Just you and me, Frank.
No.
Are you out there all weekend then?
Well, no, we'll have 4 games tomorrow, and I'll be here till about maybe 10:30 tonight. We're going to watch all 8 games and take some pictures and put them on wildpreps.com. So there'll be a full gallery of pictures from all the 4A games today. There's plenty of excitement. You know, some teams play well when they come to the state tournament, and some teams don't play so well. But that's the way it goes. And we got only 2 more days of March Madness, and maybe we'll get a little bit of a break. Would that be nice?
It sure would. Get a little bit of a break from all of it.
Oh, say that again. I can't hear you. People are yelling at me.
People are yelling at you?
Yeah, I'm sitting right behind the Rock Springs fans, and, well, they're not yelling at me. They're yelling at their team to encourage them for more sharp and crisp play in this game. Now that it's gotten interesting, it's only a 3-point game.
Who would you say sends the rowdiest fans out here?
the rowdiest fans?
Yeah.
You know, it used to be that the fans from Gillette were the rowdies, and that's years and years ago. Now it's pretty much the same. Sometimes I look at fans like who's the most obnoxious, and I'm not going to reveal who my top 3 obnoxious fans are. I'll do that when I retire.
What makes an obnoxious fan, Frank?
Well, they're yelling at the referees for every little thing, you know, and it's the officials' fault.
Well, they're just passionate for their kids, aren't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not the kids' fault, you know, and really, you really can't blame them. They're high school kids. But some fans just take this way too seriously. And that's the small majority. The really the small majority. Most of the fans are great.
I hear you. I'll say I can't blame them for being passionate. Okay, Frank, I hear the music coming through. That's it for us for the day.
Have a great day.
You too. Stay safe out there.
Bye-bye.
I'm just happy to be here. Still, I know the world's on fire. The situation's dire. A lot of work and courage gonna be required, but just happy to be here. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah. I'm just happy to be here. Still, I know the world's on fire. The situation's dire. A lot of work and courage.